This is going to be my podcast for December 15th, 2020. And today I'm going to be talking about New Zealand. And I'm going to be talking about this interview that their foreign minister had with Al Jazeera. So first, let's just play it and let's just listen to the first couple of minutes. I'm not going to do the whole thing here.
Thank you so much for joining us on UpFront. I want to begin with your country's biggest trading partner. Of course, that is China. China is a country that has been accused of numerous human rights violations, especially in recent years, from the detention of the Uyghur Muslims to the government's crackdown on Hong Kong. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has referred to the treatment of Uyghurs as an example of different approaches. Even some of your closest allies have said that you're too weak on China. Are they right? Has New Zealand been too soft on China in order to protect trade?
Well, we have a mature relationship with China, and what that means is that we're able to, in a very consistent way, promote the values and the things that we believe in, and are able to have difficult conversations with China. And it's important to ensure that as we mature our relationship, there's an understanding about our stance on human rights issues and the values that we uphold in terms of the way that we treat people and an open democracy, being fair, and we're working towards, by and large, advocacy for greater stability and peace within our region. That's well understood by China, and it's important as we navigate our way through the relationship with China, because we have a significant population here in New Zealand and they are our largest trading partner, that we can continue to have dialogue.
Is that enough?
Well, you've got to understand New Zealand's very aware of our place in the world. We're a country in the Pacific, and we have deep connections across the Pacific. And the way in which we navigate our relationship with China as our largest trading partner and are able to express our views based on the values that we hold are delicately balanced. And it's important that we continue to assert the breadth of those issues.
Okay, you're talking about the part of the world where New Zealand is, so let's stay there for a moment. Over the past decade, there has been significant documentation about...
Okay, so this lady at Al Jazeera is needling the foreign minister of New Zealand over New Zealand's ties with China, and she's complaining, on behalf of Al Jazeera, on behalf of Qatar, which on behalf of the US and UK, because that's how this all works. That's what Al Jazeera is. And by the way, even right here at the bottom, it says Al Jazeera is funded in whole or in part by the Qatari government. There's a little warning here, even on YouTube, just in case you didn't know. And imagine some staffer working for Al Jazeera, like this woman here, needling this woman, this foreign minister of New Zealand, over, human rights, when she works for an absolute monarchy where there are no human rights in Qatar. And the government is actually just a family, the Al Thani family. And not only are they, at home, there's no even illusion of democracy or human rights or equality or anything like that. They're also involved in all of America's proxy wars across the region, arming and funding and backing terrorists, and the most egregious human rights abuses on earth today, ongoing right now. That's Qatar. That's who this woman works for. And she has the audacity, the shamelessness to needle the foreign minister of New Zealand for their ties with China. And over allegations regarding the Uyghurs and regarding Hong Kong. And what about Hong Kong? Well, here's Joshua Wong in Washington, D.C., openly asking for assistance from the U.S. government after years and years of the U.S. government funding the mobs in Hong Kong. And we know for a fact, because the BBC even reported it, that the Hong Kong agitators were trained at the Oslo Freedom Forum and then sent back to Hong Kong to stir up trouble. Here he is. This is him talking.
While I said back then, Hong Kong's one country, two system was becoming one country, one and a half system.
Okay, so that's Joshua Wong in Washington, D.C., taking the internal matters of China and, making it America's business, creating himself as a vector for U.S. Meddling to go through and into China. So that's Joshua Wong. And here's the National Endowment for Democracy, the U.S. State Department's funding arm for sedition around the globe. Here's Hong Kong, China, 2019. Probably not a lot of programs now since China's pulled the plug on it. And here's Xinjiang. And I've pointed this out before. Xinjiang, East Turkestan. East Turkestan is the phrase that only separatists and separatists alone use to describe Xinjiang. Xinjiang is a part of China. East Turkestan is a fictional, non-existent country that violent separatists want to transform Xinjiang into. And this is the US government funding separatist groups inside Xinjiang, but also groups that are based in Washington, D.C., where all of these alleged abuses, all these claims of alleged abuses come from these groups who have an obvious political motivation to make things up. And of course, there is no evidence. This is more of the same that we saw the U.S. do to Iraq about weapons of mass destruction, Libya about abuses they claimed Gaddafi was carrying out against, freedom fighters who all turned out to be Al-Qaeda, and the same story in Syria. And notice how we don't hear anything about Yemen when the U.S. and Saudi Arabia are just plowing those people under the dirt, just destroying that entire country. We don't hear anything about that. And so this is my problem with this Al Jazeera in general does this all the time. And if you this is a 25-minute long show, and they also have a representative from Thailand, and she does the exact same thing to him, needle him with these made-up accusations about what's going on in Thailand, talking about the monarchy in Thailand with no sense of irony that she works for an absolute monarchy in Qatar. It's just unreal, and I think it needs to be pointed out as often as possible that that's what Al Jazeera does, and to be very careful about what we take away from Al Jazeera and the sort of things that they have some of the worst people from the conflict here in Thailand. They have the worst people here on there, and they give them a platform to do this, and then they will not needle them or ask them hard questions, but they will ask anybody who comes on to defend the Thai government and Thailand in general. They will needle them just like she does. So keep this in mind. That's the review for today. I hope you learned something about Al Jazeera, or you learned something new about New Zealand. They have this new foreign minister who doesn't want to play the US's game of blame China. New Zealand's largest trade partner is China. They know that China is the future. And I think they also know, although it's not popular or acceptable for the foreign minister of New Zealand to say, not yet, but I think they know that these stories about Xinjiang are being made up, and that the situation in Xinjiang is much more complicated than the West puts forward in their media. A Western media with a long, long track record of making things up to create crises and wars and all kinds of instability around the globe. So I heard about the new Minister of Foreign Affairs of New Zealand, but it's good to see her face, and it's good to hear her stand up for New Zealand and stand up for New Zealand's allies, which includes China. So for my patrons that make these videos possible, thank you very much. If you're watching this when I post it public, please like and share it, and please think about subscribing to my YouTube channel. It's totally free to do, and it really helps my channel grow. And look in the video description below for references and also ways you can help support my work, like through Patreon. Through Patreon, not only are you contributing monthly, but you also get extra content and benefits in return. And for everyone that's helping in every way, whether it's through Patreon or just liking and sharing my work, thank you so much. And as always, thank you for watching.